I am absolutely delighted to see this event go from strength to strength. On behalf of all of us in the MIT community, the work that our alumni have done and the volunteers that put this event together is just extraordinary. This has become the go-to event in this topic space nationally, and we're just immensely pleased and proud. And I think the agenda that's been put together is a very strong one too. And I can tell from the conversation that's going on that you're all appreciating it very much. I'm really here today to introduce the keynote speaker, Senator Scott Brown, and this may be one of the easiest jobs I've been given in a while, because actually I think this is someone who needs no introduction. So given that, I might just take the liberty and do a little bit of a commercial interlude, and I have a word from one of your sponsors here. As I mentioned, I run the executive education program at the Sloan School, and as I was driving over here, I was thinking about the theme of this event today, powerful agility, and that's a word, agility, that we just hear more and more, and it's something which resonates very strongly, you won't be surprised, for us at MIT. And as I was thinking about that, and in our own organization at MIT and the many companies and other kinds of organizations we work with in the executive education program, what are the key ingredients I was wondering of agility? Clearly there are systems and processes, but particularly in the lens that I look through, is that me? Or maybe that was the NSA just tuning in. But maybe the key ingredient that I'm concerned about in the agility of your organizations is, of course, your people. And I would add to that your people and their capacity to learn and to develop and to grow and to ensure that your organizations have the kind of agility that you need them to have to be successful in this world. What is it that you, as most of you I would imagine are CFOs, can contribute to that or to this particular issue? Well, just briefly, I think there are three things. One, and of course I'm a supplier into this space, so you won't be surprised to hear me say, it's really important that you make sure that your organizations make the resources available to invest in the development and growth of all the people in your organization. That's something which we often run against is, do companies truly value their people in the way that they can demonstrate by investing in their development and growth? You're all here today for this day, and I'm quite confident that at the end of it you're going to have learned a great deal, made many good connections, and so I know that you get it, but my plea to you is, as you're looking at the requests for resources that you receive from your organization, to really pay attention to the ones that have to do with developing the people and making sure that you're a learning organization. And related to that, let me just also say, if you can walk the talk on that and take care of your own development and growth and that of your people and teams, that's a great way to start as well. You're doing that by being here today, so I applaud you for that. This is almost the end of the commercial. You've all received, I think, a program guide of the MIT Executive Education Program. We have a booth outside. If you'd like to get on us or have a chance to get one of your executives started, or one of your perhaps engineers or technologists who's not quite as financially literate as you'd like them to be or doesn't quite get it, stop by our booth and one of my team there will be happy to tell you about our programs and explain what we can do both for individuals and for companies to help you with that challenge. So thank you for paying attention to that little commercial. And let me move over to inviting up to the stage Senator Scott Brown. Of course, this is a name that is known very well to everyone in the room, and I think you have in front of you, or you've had in front of you, his resume and biography, so I won't go through that in detail. I just wanted to call out what I thought were a couple of themes that were very relevant to the agenda here today. And one of those is as I look and think about Scott Brown's background and history and the various strands to his career so far, whether that's his work in working up through the legislative system, which of course he's most famous for these days, his work as a legal professional and expert, the long career that he has had in service to the nation as a colonel in the National Guard. This is someone actually who I think you can see is demonstrating true agility in the journey that he's been on. I also think it's fair to say, and I'll try not to be political here, one of the advantages of being a resident alien is actually I don't get to vote. I also don't get to do jury duty, but I do get to pay taxes. So I think I'm kind of impartial in some of this commentary. I think from my observation, somebody who plays the kind of role that Senator Brown played, really being in the middle of the action, in the middle of the debates, actually often being the person who would bring together both sides on difficult issues and really make progress legislatively, but also in moving debate and discourse forward. That's a role that we in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts were fortunate to have Senator Scott Brown performing that role on the national stage, and I think that really was a demonstration of somebody who has the mental agility and the commitment to values and outcomes and performance, including his own and the organizations that he's involved with leading. That is the stuff that we're talking about here today as we're thinking about the agility of our organizations. So with that, I'd like to invite Senator Scott Brown up to the stage. He's going to speak for, I think, about 20 minutes or so, and has generously offered to maybe answer some questions at the end of that as well. So, cool.
Thank you. All right, well, thank you, Peter. Just get organized up here. I'm sorry, I'm a little discombobulated today. It's one of those days. I was actually here last night. I met some of you at the dinner we had over in Newton, and then I had to give a speech. But then I got called back to go to Washington, and I just got back. I was able to kind of get on a plane, and I'm on the plane. And like many of you, I do adjust and adapt. I am very agile. And I was actually trying to get here on time, obviously, to be here to see each and every one of you. So I'm on the plane early. I'm reading. I'm getting prepared. I'm working on my speech, and everything's going well. And the plane's, okay, we got to leave, we got to leave, we got to leave. And listen, contrary to what you all think, okay, I do love women, all right? I have a house full of women, and just like my wife, there was a woman that came in, like you've all seen, and she had that one extra bag, and she's in the door is actually, we can't shut till she sits down. So she's banging in person as she goes by and tipping over a drink with that extra bag, just, completely oblivious to actually everybody else on the plane. So being Mr. Chivalry, remember, I do enjoy and like women. I got up out of my chair and I went and helped her. And I actually took her bag that was banging everybody on the head, and I said, ma'am, may I help you, please? She said, oh, thank you very much. So I took the bag, put it on the overhead, which was obviously what anybody who believes in chivalry would do. And when it was all done and she was settled, she looks up from her chair and she says, aren't you that good-looking politician from Massachusetts? Well, I said, thank you very much. She said, thank you too, Governor Romney. Tell you what, I just can't catch a break now. Not only is he about 15 years older, I think he dyes his hair a little bit. I don't know. I don't, as you can see. That was a joke. I was here. I was actually cleaning the house. I was getting ready to come here. I was not in Washington, but that was a joke, so thank you for working with me. I just want to make sure you're paying attention. Everybody's good. And I want to thank you for the hospitality and nice introduction, not only last night, but obviously the nice introduction. It was about a minute of me and about 7 minutes of the Sloan Institute, so I appreciate that. That's how they do it, the British do it, because I've been at your embassy. I know your Consul General, and well, anyway. And to be the keynote speaker here at the MIT Sloan CFO Summit, it is an honor. It's something that I've had the opportunity to do in other venues throughout the world. Since not serving in the United States Senate, I've had the opportunity to travel and learn and grow. And I'll tell you, being here with all the movers and shakers, not only from Massachusetts, but New England and the rest of the country, is quite something. And I know that MIT Sloan School is one of the best business schools in the country. My grandfather's a proud graduate of MIT, and when I was a United States Senator, and still, I've been able to really learn much, much more about MIT and the surrounding universities and what they bring not only to Massachusetts, but to the rest of the country. I want to thank our sponsors, obviously. I want to thank Nixon Peabody. Now, since I'm not in the United States Senate, I'm with Nixon Peabody. They're here. You know, what does Nixon Peabody stand for? Well, nice people, first of all. Very nice people, obviously very well connected when it comes to M&A work, labor and employment, government affairs, government relations. My colleague Jim Valley's here. We serve in the National Guard together. We're colonels. We have Gary Oberstein, the managing director. We have other representatives here from Nixon Peabody. I encourage you to give us a chance to bring some legal efficiencies to your legal budget. And that's my pitch for Nixon Peabody, so thank you very much. I'm also a assigned contributor with Fox. I'm on almost every day between TV, radio, internet, writing, obviously speaking, trying to challenge, quite frankly, the left and the right to do it better. Because as you know, as business leaders in this country, we're in trouble. We have some very serious challenges. And part of my experiences of speaking at groups like this, I just got back from Japan and was able to be there for 11 days at the behest of the Foreign Ministry to go over and talk actually about the United States and how we do it better, how our economy is just moving along, and how we get our budgets in order and we don't run deficits, and we can actually solve problems. Try doing that in the middle of a government shutdown. It was exceedingly challenging. And it's funny, as we travel, as I've traveled, I've been blessed. I went to London and spoke at the RBS macro conference there, very similar to what you're doing here. And in trying to convince people that we actually do have our act together, it is challenging, all kidding aside, because when we're running a $17 trillion national debt and $1 trillion deficits, and we do see basically the banging and lack of cooperation and civility amongst our elected leaders, it is challenging. And I'll tell you what, I would be misleading you if I said that I wish I was down there. I do. I wish I was down there trying to bring the sides together, because if you remember correctly, there were about 20 of us who were in the middle floating back and forth depending on the issue, as was referenced in the introduction, and working on things like what we did here with Mike Norman and WeFunder in one of the panels you had. That was my bill. You know, it's my bill. And the SEC, after a year and a half, is finally getting their rules and regulations. I think today is when they're finally having the hearing. That's how Washington does it. They're so slow in getting the things out that need to be done right away so we can create jobs in that environment for job creation. And I'll tell you what, that block of about 20 people, it's not there anymore. Joe Lieberman's gone, Olympia Snow, I'm gone, Ken Conrad, Richard Lugar. So what do you have? You have more extremes on the left and the right. And I'll tell you what, it's frustrating, and it's a little bit embarrassing to see from afar. And I just want to do a little bit of a catch-up for those of you who are wondering. The truck is right outside. It has 276,000 miles on it. The GMC Canyon is doing very well, and I use it now for short hauls, actually to and from the Fox studios. And if you're a regular Fox viewer, maybe you've seen me filling in for the O'Reilly Factor, Bill O'Reilly. And at first I was a little nervous, but I'm pretty proud of it now. I mean, who else can say that they've served as the replacements for both Bill O'Reilly and Ted Kennedy? And I looked over the list of everybody that's coming, and I really, truly want to thank each and every one of you for coming and sharing your knowledge and expertise on how to create jobs and an environment for job creation and job growth. And many of you helped me not only in my first election, but in the second election when I worked in the legislature, from medical devices, biopharma, finance and financial services, education, telecommunication, high-tech banking. Those are all areas that I focused my efforts on when I was a senator, not only in the legislature as a rep and senator, but as a United States senator. I was always available and fighting for you on your issues, making sure that you were not demonized and vilified by the elected officials and others that were in Washington. And I have to tell you, I'm not sure if that's the case now. It's been a different environment over the last year or so. And I know you all remember that special election 4 years ago. It was pretty much viewed as a formality. in a state with just around, I think, 11 or 12% Republican legislation. What were the chances? I was running as the presumed loser. And I'll tell you what, the question I heard most was, hey, Scott, why are you even bothering? Why even get out of bed? It was supposed to be a done deal. And quite honestly, I was not part of that deal. And I never bought into that thinking. Like many of you who are not only part of businesses that started from the ground up and have kept been battling and battling to be the powerhouses that you are now, that's how I was, starting each and every day, bright and early. And I sensed overconfidence on the other side. And like many of you, I've always loved the game of basketball. And there's no self-respecting player that will ever leave the court before taking his or her best shot. The way I saw it, running for the Senate was no different. I was going to give it my best shot and try each and every day and try to win, just like you do in your businesses today. I ran on the issues. I fought clean. I said that the federal government's spending too much, taxing too much, and borrowing too much. The last thing we needed in Washington was another yes man or yes woman. I said that we needed to get off the road to big government and focus again on private enterprise, things that you're dealing with each and every day. And the basic federal duties, starting with the security of our nation, creating new jobs for people, and focusing again on private enterprise were the most critical factors back then and today. I said that what I believe to this day, which is absolutely true, that Obamacare is a terrible, terrible deal for Americans. It's unsuited to a free country, and I'm against it. And you can actually see right now everything that's happening as a result of the election back 4 years ago. They weren't able to get the full loaf that they wanted. And as a result, you're seeing something that is not only making employers, as you know, go from a full work week plus overtime to getting under that threshold of 30 hours. You're seeing the costs rise. You're seeing insurance canceled. You as business leaders and CFOs especially are saying, what the heck, what do we do? Listen, I'm a former United States Senator. As was said, I guess I'm agile and brilliant or whatever. And it's confusing even for me. Well, what do you do? How do you take care of it? Is it best to pay the fine, go into the plan? What do you do? And it is exceedingly messed up right now. And I've enjoyed tremendously the kind of the CYA and the mea culpas by the administration and by all our legislative leaders to try to say, oh, listen, I didn't know, I didn't. Listen, you should read the bills, first of all. You should understand them, see how they affect the state, the country, the debt and deficit and vote. You shouldn't be passing bills first. Can you imagine if anybody in this business right now, you as CFOs especially, just signed off on a bill and said, oh, that's great, we're just going to pay it. What the heck, we're not going to read it. Of course you can't do that. You have to actually be involved from the ground level. And don't forget, as politely as I could, I told the media that it wasn't the Kennedy seat. It wasn't the Democrat seat. It was the people's seat. And it still is, and it still should be the people's seat. And I could feel the wind shifting when union guys telling me that they had their vote, when middle-class families were saying, you know, with a lot of bills to pay, with kids in college, have 2 incomes, they work hard, and they hear themselves called rich by politicians who tell them how much of their hard-earned money that they can actually get to keep. And just to step back for a minute, listen, I became a Republican, and this is a little partisan. I'm not going to be too partisan. I just want you to understand where my head's at and where I'm coming from. But I became a Republican when I was poor. And I guess if we're going to get to know each other a little bit more, I think it's important to tell you that the race of 2010 wasn't the first time in my life that I was considered a presumed loser. I grew up in various towns around Boston in circumstances I've described in my book, Against All Odds. It's number 4 in the New York Times, did very well. It's still selling well, but I should tell you up front, it doesn't always make for a good reading, uplifting reading. And I'll spare you some of the detail, except a few that I think are important to let you know a little bit about me and what has formed my opinions in the presentation I'm giving to you today. Before I was a year old, my dad went his own way and unfortunately never really came back. My mom raised my sister and me. Mom and dad were married and divorced 4 times each. Lived in 17 houses by the time I was 18. Some fair amount of abuse and other challenges, probably not unlike each and every person in this room. You either know somebody or you experienced it yourself where you had those challenges that have defined who you are and how you learn and grow and adjust and adapt and become agile and mobile. And, you know, I'll never forget it. We were always moving to some cheap apartment or walk-up, or maybe coming as needy visitors in other people's homes. And I had a series of stepdads, probably like many people in this room. 2 out of 3 of them, you know, had a mean streak, and when they drank, it was a violent streak. And those guys brought a lot of fear into our lives with no father to protect me. There were times in my boyhood that I felt that I really couldn't trust anyone. And I think, and I trust that many of you have experienced those very same things. And I recognize now, more than anything in the world, the importance of family. And there's nothing that I take greater pleasure in. Forgetting all the political stuff is, and all the, you know, the achievements and everything, is the fact that I have a loving and supportive wife and 2 great kids and a family that's solid as a rock, notwithstanding some of the challenges that we've gone through. And I know that you all can identify with that. And you've heard stories yourselves, or maybe you've experienced the fact that you are maybe poor or trapped and wishing that you or they could run away from it all, like I did in the early days. The lucky ones can also remember, however, the gracious influence of adults, mentors that we had in our lives that helped us achieve greatness. Well, that's how it was with me, a kid fending for himself, going nowhere, feeling like all the good things in life were meant for others, with no sense or possibility of life outside maybe a basketball court, shoveling it off, going down there and playing. Never had the kind of connections that you hear about to ease the path for me. But I'll tell you what, I had some great mentors, some coaches, a couple of teachers who took me under their wing and helped me make that difference in my life. And they gave me a second chance that many of us need, especially right now with these troubling times. With kindness and encouragement, they showed me that I actually did have a lot going for me. Went to a different direction and worked all through college and law school and jobs that usually involved a paintbrush, a shovel. You know, as long as it was honest, hard work and paid the bills, it was another step to get to that final goal. And I know, and I keep referencing, that each and every one of you know exactly what I mean. It may not sound in every detail like the making of a Republican, but in 1980, when I cast my vote for Ronald Reagan, I knew he spoke my language, the language of opportunity and personal freedom. And back then, just like today, I'm sad to say that the National Democrats have offered themselves as champions of the little guy, a voice for the people at the bottom who didn't have it easy. I'll tell you what, I've been at the bottom myself, and that's not how I saw it then, and that's not how I see it now. I don't think we need a party that's just going to manage poverty better. We need a party, and we need people in leadership positions in your businesses and in our legislative branches to actually provide opportunity. The ability so they can actually go and make their own choices, their choices about health care, the choices about whether they want to work or not work, they want to grow, they want to start a business or not. That's what's lacking today with a lot of what's happening. I'll tell you what, when I was preparing for this presentation, there was nothing more important to me in my legislative career as a selectman, assessor, selectman, state rep, state senator, United States senator, and making sure that businesses in Massachusetts and throughout this country have the tools and resources to make sure that you can do your jobs, that you can actually hire people and give them the dignity of work and the dignity of looking at a paycheck and saying, honey, look how much I made, and by golly, I got a bonus today too. I'm on that track to another position within the company. I'm learning and growing and developing with the business that I've invested myself in. I worked very hard and will continue to work very hard for the American dream, the ability for people like you to guide your leadership team so you can be better and hire and grow and expand. Well, what's the problem? What's the problem? The problem right now is that lack of regulatory and tax certainty. The federal government is not agile and mobile. The federal government right now, and I've felt like this a long time, long before the present administration was in there. And let me just backtrack a little bit. There's a role for government, okay? I'm not saying that there isn't, because my mom was on welfare. I know that there was a safety net there for her when we needed it most. It wasn't a lifelong entitlement. It was there as a safety net. So there's a role for government. So let's start with that. But I also will say that sometimes government needs to get out of the way and let you all do what you need to do. The lack of regulatory and tax certainty, I guarantee you, if I ask for a show of hands, that is the #1 issue affecting you right now. You don't need a 3 to 6 to 9 month plan, with all due respect. When you were in Washington and they're talking about continuing resolutions or funding the government for additional periods of time, 3 to 6 to 9 month patches, that's all they're doing. So let's just take this example. So they just shut down the government for reasons that they felt were very important. That's fine. And they were fighting basically about a continuing resolution, which is funding the government. They were also fighting about the debt ceiling. Now remember, we have a debt ceiling. It's like $17 trillion. We're already at it. We voted to raise it many, many times in the country's history. Just imagine now, remember, the federal government is like a business. It's like a business just like yours. So let's just say that they shut down the government, that they did, and then they said, oh, you know what, we're going to fix it. We're going to come back, and we're going to do it in January and February. So they basically took it so they don't have to work during the Christmas holidays. I mean, you know it. I know it because I was there. Then they're going to take it up in January, and supposedly right now they're working on it. I guarantee you they're not. And I'm telling you, I know this for a fact. And then you go and you say, and you look at January when it's coming around, mark my words, that January, February, you're going to have basically another banging of the heads and they're going to break down. And let's just say hypothetically that they actually get to pass something for a year. They do a continuing resolution for a year to get everybody through or up to the 14 elections, because it's all politics. And then let's say that we actually raise the debt ceiling to $18 trillion, right? Then what? Then what? So now we're in $18 trillion national debt. We've only kicked the can as far as it can go with every foot and every toe and every other angle we can send it. So now we're at $18 trillion national debt. We're still running at trillion-dollar deficits. We're still not funding the government and addressing the entitlement problems and a lot of the things that you know need to be done. And we can do it. We can do it, but what's the problem? The problem is that you don't have people in Washington right now who want to be agile and want to adapt and want to work together as Americans first, not as Democrats or Republican. Because I tell you what, I don't know about you, but I am tired. I'm tired of the division. I'm tired of the haves and the have-nots, the black versus white, the 99 versus 1, the rich versus poor, business against non-business. I'm tired of it. At what point in this country do we start to say, you know what, we're in $18 trillion national debt. We're running trillion-dollar deficits. We have Medicare, we have Social Security and other programs that people rely on for their lives and their ability to actually function as functioning members of this society are going to be bankrupt. And what are they doing? Nothing. Nothing. And you deserve better. Listen, I don't have all the answers, but when I was down there, I was the most bipartisan senator in the United States Senate. I worked 50-50 with each party. Everybody in our delegation in Massachusetts is 99 to 100% with their party. And that's the way it is with almost everybody in each party. So how are you going to get things done? How are you as CFOs and business leaders in your various businesses going to be able to advise your stockholders, advise your leadership team as to, hey, I know what's going on in Washington. Really? What do we do? Where do we go? You deserve better. I deserve better. And I'll tell you what, one of the things that's in everybody's mind right now is Obamacare. I hate to bring it up, but the thing's a train wreck pursuant to, their own representatives. It's completely broken. To take a healthcare system and put a sledgehammer to it, yeah, could it be fixed? Sure. Can we bring efficiencies to it? Absolutely. Can you find and weed up and do that top-to-bottom review of every program within the healthcare system? Absolutely. When we have one doctor in Texas at half a billion dollars of Medicare fraud, yeah, we should fix it. I agree with that. But why are we going to dismantle and have the federal government telling us and trying to run a system like they do the Veterans Administration healthcare, where you have veterans who are dying and losing benefits and coverages and adding actually more because they're not addressing their preventive maintenance and preventive care? Are we going to be like that? Are we going to look at programs like that. And let's step back another step, and let me tell you that I believe everybody should have basic health care. And I think we could do it like we've done it in Massachusetts. We have to get costs under control. You know that because you guys are the ones writing the checks, but we can do it better. And the only way that's going to happen is if we work together. Because I look around and I see that there's between 8 and 10 million young people in America who are now old enough to vote, but they can't find jobs. And actually, I love when we get these reports about jobless claims and unemployment and the unemployment numbers. Listen, they're going down. Did you know that? Going down. They're going down mostly because people have stopped looking. They've fallen off the rolls. Imagine being one of those people where basically even the federal government has given up on you and not helping you get employment. And what's the biggest challenge? The biggest challenge is because of that lack of regulatory and tax certainty. You need to know what's next so you can have that 3 to 6 to 9 year plan, not the 3 to 6 to 9 month plan. And right now, you have a role to play. You have a very real role to play. What can you do? Well, you need to stay informed. You know, whether it's getting a great government relations team like we have at Nixon Peabody, whether it's getting a PAC at your business and being involved in that PAC, because unfortunately the PACs have the ability to get access and support various candidates and draw that line in the sand and look at the voting record of the individuals who are representing you and your interests, whether it's at the state level, whether it's at the national level. You have to draw that line in the sand and say, geez, that money I'm giving that particular person or candidate, are they looking out for our interests? Are they pro-business? Are they looking out for us as we grow and develop and hire and expand in this great country? I'm left each and every day, at the end of the day, especially as I travel around the world and travel around the country speaking to groups like yours, and I'm left with the frustration that, Washington is in a bubble. They're in a bubble. When I speak to my former colleagues there, or I read about the things that they're doing and saying, I say, man, do they really get it? Because as you travel, as I've traveled around to North Carolina and South Dakota and Iowa and all other parts of New England, and I ask people, like, what are the biggest challenges you have? What are the biggest needs that you have? What do you need the federal government to do? What can we do to help you grow and expand? And 9 times out of 10, they just said, get out of the way. Just let us do our thing. So the role that you have is to encourage those leaders to just let you do your thing. Once again, there's a role for government. Sometimes government needs to step out of the way, because if you look at what's happening, when you have so many small business owners at the complete mercy of entities like the EPA, not only ordered around, but sometimes closing businesses. You see what's happening with the NSA, as it was referenced here? It's no joke. I mean, at one point you had a program, a surveillance program, that has gone from being credible to, quite frankly, being creepy. And the IRS, when you're looking at these types of things, when you're targeting various groups, I don't care if it's Democrat or Republican, it's just not right. It's not defensible in a free society. We need a new approach. We need a situation and a system where people and our elected officials look at us as Americans first, not as Democrats or Republicans. And we need more tolerance, not only within our party, but within the Democratic Party as well, within society, when it comes to trying to figure things out. And I'm going to tell you one final story, then I'm really looking forward to taking questions, and honestly, everything's on the table. So I've had the honor, as I said, of traveling around, and I gave the 100th birthday keynote celebration speech at the Reagan Library. And like many of you, there's books out right now about it, the relationship between Tip O'Neill, Massachusetts, obviously Speaker of the House, and President Reagan. And like many people from Massachusetts, I always want to know what's fact and what's fiction, what's really the myth and what's the truth. So I gave the speech. Mrs. Reagan was sitting right in the front row, and after we had a lunch, about 50 people, and I was sitting next to her. I said, Mrs. Reagan, I've always wanted to know, what was the relationship between Tip O'Neill and President Reagan? And she looked at me and she said, Scott, they loved each other like brothers. I said, really? That's amazing. He says, yes. When the president was shot, There was no one more upset, aside from me, as his wife, than Tip O'Neill. And there was a point where no one could get in his room. And somehow, Tip O'Neill, the Speaker of the House, he got into his room. And he actually went up to the president, put his hand on his shoulder, and started reciting the 23rd Psalm. Hearing, "The Lord is my shepherd," the president woke up and joined in. And they held hands, and they prayed together. And when they finished, Mrs. Reagan told me that the Speaker said to the president, "Mr. President, I love you. The country loves you. Please get well soon." Wow. Kind of almost makes you tingle a little bit. I feel like Chris Matthews. But can you imagine that scene in that room, that the respect, battling by day, working together by night, putting our country's interests first. I'll tell you what, we don't have enough of that. And that's something that I yearn for as an elected official. I yearn for the time that we can battle by day, respectfully, with class and dignity, get together by night, over a pizza and a beer, talking about the families, and put our country's interests first. Being agile and mobile, adjusting and adapting, working together for the benefit of our country. I mean, is that too much to ask? Listen, I don't care what your political persuasion is here today. If you look to the left and right, you know, we're not all the same. We don't have the same upbringings, the same beliefs, same core values maybe. But the one thing I know we have is that we believe in the greatness of this country. We believe that we live in the greatest country in the world. And it has amazing potential. And right now we're struggling with our identity, not only nationally and internationally, but just within the two parties themselves. So your role and your challenge is to get involved. Don't just let other people make those business decisions for you. You have to play a very active role. I can tell you, I met with every business group and non-business group I could. I didn't give you those form letters. I didn't blow you off. I didn't care if I agreed or not, but if it created jobs and created opportunity for people to have that personal dignity to go out and work and provide for your family, yeah, I'm all for it. So I want to just say I'm honored to be here. I want to thank all of our sponsors. I want to thank the alumni for putting this together. And I want to thank each and every one of you for coming. And I'm happy to take some questions. Thank you very much. Thank you. Let me just say, this is kind of like school. You can ask questions or you can go back to your classes. So happy to take a couple. Any? Yes, right here. Just get up and yell it. There's always one,
yes.
Huh?
Yes. And as it happens to turn out, I live in New Hampshire, so my question for you is might I see you on a ballot at some point in the future?
Well, his question was, what am I doing now and where am I going and, you know, what's life have in store? I'll tell you what, you know, when you run for political office, I don't care if you're running for the school committee or the selectmen. I've been running and involved in politics for almost 17 years. Every year, you know, running for the next election, fundraising, and it's tiring. And more importantly, for your spouses, whether you're a male or a female, your husband or your wife, you really need to have a thick skin, and it really is draining on the family. And the ability to step back has been invigorating. To be able to go on Fox and travel around the world and visit businesses and learn and grow and understand the challenges that we're facing, now that I'm not there and seeing it from a larger perspective, I have to tell you, it's been humbling and it's been really exciting to learn. I don't think I'm done. I really don't. You know, whether it means running here or running in New Hampshire or running in a more national level, I just don't know. The things that I've been doing have been fun. The fact that I can challenge both sides to do it better, and you know, I know they're listening because I get the feedback. And so I'm going to just get through the holidays, I think, and then make some decisions. Thank you. Where do you live in New Hampshire, by the way? You guys are in good moods. It's such a nice way to kind of, you know, Thursday. It is Thursday, right? Yeah. Yes.
You're calling NYC advisors from New York.
Yeah, just yell it. I'll repeat it. You got to turn the microphone on.
Everything you said resonates But I don't see that it has any impact in Congress for at least the last 6 years. And everything is getting more and more either to the right or to the left. So I understand you encourage all of us to be involved and so forth. But what do you really see the next, I don't know, the next election, the next 2 elections? Yeah. Can more centrists be elected, or are we going to get into more to the right and more to the left and continue this bickering?
Well, that's a great question. He was asking about, I think, basically, you know, what do I see in 14 and 16? Is our country going to become more divided, or are they going to try to, you know, listen, I don't know if it's because of gerrymandering. I don't know if it's because of people's fear and frustration, but you are getting geographically, in particular, extremes on the left and the right. People who have beliefs, and their beliefs do not include any type of compromise. And I have always been raised to try to find solutions. I always, whether I was a captain of the basketball team or being a colonel in the military, always finding ways to solve problems. I'm a problem solver. Now, the people that are down there right now, quite honestly, they you know, yell and scream and blame everybody for everything and have a hearing, and they'll attack you know, a bank or a business and say, oh, you're terrible, terrible. But in terms of actually doing legislation and or sometimes undoing legislation to actually solve problems, it is few and far between. Now, one thing that you probably missed it in the news, we had a situation here in Massachusetts with a drug manufacturer that actually provided steroids that were faulty and killed 60-plus people and injured hundreds of others. In the midst of all the battle, the Senate put out a very solid bill addressing that. So there are things that they are doing. But until they find a way to stop looking to the next election, I remember when I was there, every decision was based on the next election. It wasn't based on, and they go from crisis to crisis. And let me just step back and refresh everybody's memory. The debt ceiling and the continuing resolution, did they find out about it like a week before it was going to happen? Not really. Do you think? I mean, no, they knew about it about a year before. They knew the dates. They know the dates. And what do? 6 months out, nothing. 3 months, nothing. 1 month, nothing. 2 weeks, nothing. A week, oh my goodness. We have a debt ceiling and a continuing resolution. We have to fix it. Well, it's all about control. It's about the majority leader who's in charge on both sides, controlling the conversation. Say, hey, listen, we're going to have to work past Thursday. Really? Yeah, we may have to stay here for the weekend. Oh, no. I mean, it's all about control. So, yeah, how do you fix it? You have to elect people who go down there, and you hopefully will believe that they want to go down there and problem solve. I'm a term limits guy. My term was a little shorter than I would have wanted. But I'll tell you what, I think term limits should play a key role. 2 terms as a senator, 5 terms, 10 years or 6 terms as a congressman, and you're out. So, what else? Yes?
Ken Goldman, Black Duck Software. First of all, thank you for your work on behalf of Massachusetts. I may not agree with a lot of what you say, but I appreciate your efforts. And I'm being honest. But I do have to say that what you did on the Stock Act made a lot of sense. I was someone who was not aware of the insider trading ability in Congress, saw a great episode of 60 Minutes, and couldn't believe that Martha Stewart goes to jail for insider trading while people in Congress and Senate get rich. Can you explain to me, as a citizen of this country, how people in Washington could possibly think it's okay to trade on insider information where those of us who do what we do go to jail for that?
Sure, absolutely. So first of all, while we may not agree on much, I believe we've found an agreement. I also presume that you appreciated the crowdfunding bill that I passed and the Hire a Hero Veterans bill that I passed, and also the 3% withholding. For those of you who do work with the business, they get rid of that stealth tax and a whole host of other things. So I bet we agree on more than you would believe, because I'm way past the ideological issues in politics. But I'll tell you what, I saw that same 60 Minutes piece, and I went back to my office and spoke with my staff, and I said, you know, we have to do something. This is outrageous. I didn't know. here I am, I'm looking at my 401k after the breakdown, and I'm like down X amount, thousands of dollars. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So I saw it, I filed the bill, and I tried to get a co-sponsor. And believe it or not, I was blackballed because I'm running for re-election. God forbid we give Scott Brown something positive to do for the country. So I was blackballed, so Senator Gillibrand actually filed a competing bill. All she did was took my bill and changed the title, and it's her bill now. So we have two bills going through. Fortunately, courageously, Senator Lieberman and Senator Collins and the Homeland Security Committee, my committee, they took both bills, merged them. We were both co-sponsors on it, and they rammed it through the committee process in a Herculean manner. Having hearings, did it legitimately, but they really pushed it through because it was an issue of trust between the American people and the federal government. And it was just wrong. So we passed the bill out of committee, and it sat on Harry Reid's desk because it had my name on it. Well, guess what? The president had a State of the Union. You give me an insider trading bill, and I'll sign it tomorrow. Remember that? Well, I'll tell you what. It wasn't going to happen. But fortunately, all my colleagues left, and I waited for the president to come up. And I said, Mr. President, I have an insider trading bill. It's on Harry Reid's desk. Tell him to get it out. I will. I'll tell him to get it out. Well, the good news was that this is one of the reasons I like Fox is because he was mic'd up live with Fox National News, and everybody heard it. And everybody heard it, okay? And so then I started, I wrote letters, I called, I went on talk radio, I went everywhere and pushed it. Well, finally, lo and behold, Harry Reid brought it up, passed 97-3. Great bill. No, thank you. Hey, great bill. I thought it reestablished the trust, but guess what? I'm gone. Joe Lieberman's gone. Some of the other supporters and real kind of hard asses on this bill, they're gone. The middle of the night, the Senate actually, and remember, this applied to the administration, their spouses, their staff, their spouses. The middle of the night, the Senate and the House, in a matter of minutes, passed a retraction. They made it not apply to spouses, not apply to the administration, and not apply to staff. Did you hear anybody, any of our newly elected representatives, the ones who are fighting for the middle class and the little guys, say anything? No. And that's what's so frustrating. It's great when the camera's rolling, but when you got to get down and get to it, that's when it's a problem. All right, I have time for one more, then I got to do a radio thing. Yes, right over there.
Scott, first of all, thank you very much for your service to the country.
Thank you.
I'm going to have to get your book and read it. Our backgrounds resonate a bit. My rather unserious question is, at 4 years old, what was the item that caused you to be a Republican or a conservative and be branded that for the rest of your life?
It wasn't 4. It was around 16, 17, 18. It wasn't 4.
Okay.
I was getting my diapers changed probably around that time. Well, listen, the thing that was important for me, my grandfather was a Republican. He was a very strong Victorian saver, thinker. But the thing that really resonated was, quite honestly, was back when President Reagan I was in college, like many of you back then. I was looking at what President Reagan had to say and providing that opportunity and prosperity and ability for freedom and the ability to think for yourself and make your own decisions that really led me. And I think my mom being on welfare and the fact that we remember what it was like to pinch pennies and pinch dollars, the value of a dollar, I felt was more representative of the Republican Party. And well, listen, I want to thank you all. I'm getting the hook here, Jeremy. Have a great Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday season, and much success in your future endeavors. Thank you.